If you want to quickly understand who you are in an astrological concept, you want to know what your ascendant, your moon, and your sun sign is, and listen to this podcast because we're going to be telling you exactly what those three elements mean in your chart. And if you don't know what it is, pause this, go and Google it, find out what your ascendant, your sun, and your moon is. And if you don't know what your ascendant is because you need your time of birth, then skip ahead to the sun and the moon part. And let's talk about who you are, discover yourself on a deep soul level. Hi, my name is Holly from Askhollyhall.com. I am a master astrologer. Vedic and Western astrology is what I'm well versed in, as well as Sidereal. I have a background education in philosophy and psychology. I am trained and certified in neuro-linguistic programming. I'm trained and certified in past life regression hypnosis therapy. When my clients work with me, I also start to get messages from Akashic Records. I get downloads, clairvoyance, sometimes mediumship, and remote viewing. Today we're going to talk about ascendants and the sun sign as well as the moon sign. These being the three most important parts of the chart. All you have to do is Google, what is my ascendant? What is my sun sign? What is my moon sign? If you would like to know what it is in Vedic or Sidereal, you can search the same thing. What is my Vedic moon sign? What is my Vedic ascendant and sun sign? In most cases, it will be different than the Western version. And the reason for that is because the Vedic and Sidereal go by the point of reference where you were born on the earth, as if you had a telescope and you could look into the sky, in the map of the sky, the day that you were born from your location. Western astrology, as I had learned in the last few years, I've been doing this for well over 25 years, is that they're off. The calendar is not as accurate. The ephemeris is not as accurate, and it is off minus approximately 23 to 24 days. The Eastern argument whether the ascendant or the moon is most important is debatable. Some will say the moon is most important because it does represent your past lives and the individual personality that you came into in this incarnation via your past life. What was your karma? What did you learn? What was your lessons, etc.? And so you will live a predominant amount of your life representing the old version of you. But the ascendant is where we're going to start. Now you have to know what your sun sign, you have to know the time of your birth in order to know what your ascendant is. So let's start there. And if you don't know your ascendant, skip ahead and let's talk about the sun and the moon. Okay, so the ascendant has to do with how you want to represent yourself to the world. How do you want other people to see you? How do you want them to visualize not who you are? Because the ascendant will also tell me what somebody looks like. Okay, so for instance, a Sagittarius ascendant, I will always tell them that they're taller than their family members are. So if they are of Asian descent and they're that nationality are shorter people, 5'2", 5'3", then they're probably 5'6" or 5'7". Sagittarians usually have long legs as well, and that's where they get most of their height is from their legs rather than their torso. And there are facial expressions or facial features of a Sagittarius that stands out too. So opposing that would be a Cancer ascendant or a Taurus ascendant, and sometimes a Leo ascendant will come as shorter than what their origin is, ancestry and generational. So the ascendant also is our mask, and that is very protective. It's also the ego. And some people will misrepresent what the ego is. And if you want to do some work on Freudian theory of id and ego, as well as Jungian theory, you will see that it is not always a bad thing. Ego. It's not, I always tell people, ego isn't that you think you're all that in a bag of chips. Okay. Ego means that we have masks that protect us when we're in vulnerable situations. Now, vulnerable situations are very individual. I would look at the rest of the chart to see what those vulnerable situations are, where their weaknesses are, and where their strengths are as well. That could help them through it. So let's say you're a very shy person. Your chart will show that you're shy. You may have a lot of passivity, passive planets in your chart and passive signs in your chart. We can talk about that in another section. But for instance, Taurus, Cancer, if you have a predominant amount of Taurus or Cancer in your chart, maybe even Virgo, sometimes Libra, a lot of planets below the horizon of the chart, you will be more shy, more reserved, and more cautious. Scorpio also can be cautious. This is your ascendant sign as well. Now, this one here is a Gemini ascendant. And this is, you can see it's between the 12th and the first house is where the ascendant lies. Now, because the moon lies in Gemini in the 12th house, if the moon was not in the 12th house, which represents the past life, this person would normally be a very talkative, needs to stand on stage and communicate and talk and teach as well, needs to share knowledge, maybe a journalist, broadcaster, writer, etc. But because this particular one, the moon lies in the 12th house is more hidden. It's softer, it's more reserved, behind the scenes. Sometimes doesn't really want everybody to hear everything that they have to say. So in this particular case, this ascendant of Gemini is tamed a bit in communication because of the 12th house moon. But in general, a Gemini rising will be a talkative person who needs to share their knowledge and their information. This, in this case, can still be the situation. They may be a writer, a playwright, the one that writes the commercials or the movies or the books as well, or somebody who is a teacher but likes to work more in an independent, quiet situation. Ascendants also represent how we look. And in this case, being Gemini, there would be a thinness to them as well and a height to them. Now, it depends on the rest of the chart. Why does the ascendant protect us? If this ascendant was in Cancer, it would be a very shy person. And so whenever they're in a situation where there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of intensity, maybe it's loud, busy, then this person will suddenly become very quiet, very reserved, very silent. And that would be if it was in Cancer, and as well as Taurus, the sign, as well as Virgo, sometimes Libra, sometimes Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces. Most of the water signs are shy. Most of the earth signs are shy. Libras can come across as shy, Libra risings, because they're people pleasers. And so if the situation means that they need to let somebody else have center stage, somebody else is louder, somebody else is much more brass, then they'll become the opposite and give that person the right to their stage. Now, with the ascendant, you want to be able to know what it is that your ascendant is. Now, when you first meet somebody, that's what you're going to meet. And so that's where you got to be really careful when you're hiring somebody, when you're meeting a new friend or a partner. Because what happens is you're meeting the ascendant, and that may not be who they are at all. In this case, their ascendant is the same as their moon. So you will meet, in general, the person, but you'll see this reserved at first until they realize that they can communicate with you. They can find a common ground or a teachable moment. They're always looking for Geminis. And therefore, once they feel emotionally safe with you, that being the moon in this case, you will see that they are very communicative very quickly. Now, let's say this person had a Pisces rising. You would not see that, and a Gemini moon. You would not see that at all. In fact, those are in contrast with each other, Pisces and Gemini. So you would see someone who is very quiet, very reserved, sitting way back behind the scenes, the one that sits at the back of the class, doesn't put their hand up, doesn't engage in conversation. And you might think, what a boring person if you go out on a date with them. Boy, they're so quiet. They don't really want to communicate at all. But it's sad because once you get to know that person, if they've got a planet such as Moon in Sag or Gemini or Libra or even sometimes Scorpio, because they're very inquisitive, you will have missed getting to know that different layer of who they are. So note that when you first meet somebody, what you see is not what you get. And that's the ascendant. So let's take a look at the moon. The moon moves approximately every 2.5 days into each constellation in the sky. The zodiacs are represented by the constellations, or vice versa. Constellations are the zodiacs. Constellations are not all exactly the same size, right? They're a collection of stars, and that's what determines a constellation of stars. And every time it goes through a constellation, every approximately 2.5 days, then you've got what your moon sign is, and that will tell you. So as you can tell, if you are a Virgo and the Virgo is lasting about 30 to 31 days in that sign, every 2.5 days, anyone else that's a Virgo has a completely different moon sign than you have. And again, there's 24 hours in a day and 60 minutes in that. So depending on what time you were born, will also change the chart drastically. So you can see how astrologically it's nearly impossible for each person to have an identical chart, even if you are a twin. And I will talk about that in another course. So let's talk about why the moon is so important. The moon is so important because it represents who you were in past lives. Therefore, if you have a moon in Scorpio in a past life, you had several traits, even careers and jobs and interests that a Scorpio would have. If you have a moon in Sagittarius, it would indicate that you've come into this lifetime as a free spirit, somewhat of a philosopher, and someone who really engaged in learning and expanding their knowledge, or may have traveled vastly in a past life. Again, we'd have to look at the entire chart as a whole. But understanding this is extremely important, because you want to know where you came from, the origin of your spirit or your soul, and the underlying gifts and challenges that you may have because of that past life. It also represents your everyday needs. Imagine that you have already established a basic personality, a base personality, a foundation. And here you are learning a new one, which is the sun sign. We'll get to next. As you're learning the new version of you, this sun sign, you will default to your moon sign often. And that's sometimes how people will know you once they get past your ascendant. Now, if your ascendant in your moon, like we saw in the other chart, is the same, then what you see is what you get. Not much is going to change after that. But we really don't know that until we meet someone in different environments. That's why I tell a lot of my clients, you want to get to know who their moon sign is, what their moon sign is. You don't have to be an astrologer to do that, but you do have to meet the person in an environment, in an atmosphere that is comfortable for them or where they can be more of themselves. So, for instance, if you're dating, I always tell people when you're doing dating apps to put in your profile that you would like to meet your dates at an interactive location. I call those play dates. You want to choose about 5 to 10 play dates. They may be events that are happening locally or seasonally in your area. They may be activities, might be a museum or bowling, mini golf, or skydiving. Now, if the partner says, I do not want to do anything like that, that's the most boring thing in the world for me, and you're someone who loves to frequent museums, then this may not be a good partner for you because having interests are important. But let's say they would like to engage. Then you're going to see them in an interactive situation, not awkwardly sitting across a table having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or a dinner date trying to force conversation in a very restrictive environment. This way, you're interacting, you're moving, you're playing, you're having fun, you're reacting to that fun, you're watching and witnessing their reactions to it. You might fumble, you might fall, might make a mistake, may have some opinions about what you're visualizing, what you're seeing. And this is how you really get to know someone's moon sign after the handshake, nice to meet you, ascendant. Get the picture? The moon sign is also how you deal with daily activities emotionally. When you're emotionally triggered, how do you react? So, for instance, an Aries moon is going to react instantaneously, quite excited, actually, or angry, depending on what the situation is. So, let's say they get home after a day's work and they got stuck in traffic jams or somebody cut them off. They're going to be pissed right away. They're going to express that immediately in the car. And if it just happened, as soon as they walk in the door, if you say, how was your day? This bloop just cut me off. What a complete bloop. And of course, that has nothing to do with the day, but it's something that just happened. So they're instantly reacting to it. The neat thing about usually Aries, Leos, and Sages, they get over it very quickly. They don't harbor or hang on to that anger. But if you get them the most exciting present or you give them exciting news, they also get pumped and excited. They're also very excited about ideas that they have that they might be emotionally attached to. So therefore, once you get to know, or if you're with, let's say your child is this type of person, I'll have clients, mothers come to me and go, he's so aggressive, he's so assertive, he gets so anxious and he's high anxiety and he's excitable. How do I help him? How do I solve these problems? And I go, an hour later, when you approach your child and say, okay, I got a solution for you. How are they? If they got a fiery moon, they're fine. They're over it. And you're still trying to solve the problem. If you're a problem solver, such as a Virgo or a Capricorn, or even a Scorpio, you might ruminate on this for your child and also be anxious about the next excitable or even arguable event, because they can be argumentative as well. But if you can understand that they are as quick to fire up as they are to calm down, then you just let them be reactive and move forward. So the moon is important to understand what somebody's daily needs are, especially to understand what your daily needs are. So for instance, if you are a Capricorn moon, this is somebody who is very self-managed, self-aware. They're able to navigate themselves in a work situation. They really don't want anyone to be the boss of you, a boss of them. And if you have a child that's got a Capricorn moon, good luck on giving them rules and regulations and managing them because they're very adult for their age. And you're not going to be the boss of them. But they make great entrepreneurs, and they make good business people. They make great parents in general. And they also do well in management positions because you don't have to micromanage them and you don't have to tell them what to do. They will take care of it themselves. So on a daily basis, they need to have this in their life or they won't be happy at work. They also can be bullies and they can be bossy depending on the rest of the chart or whether they're having a good day or a bad day. So the moon is important for you to understand what your own personal needs are. The more that you understand that, the better that you understand yourself. So now let's take a look at the sun signs. Now on to the sun sign. Probably everybody's favorite because everybody knows what their sun sign is. If you want to have a more in-depth reading about what your astrological chart means on a multitude of levels, this is very primary education on the chart, then you want to have a reading with me and you go to Askhollyhall.com. I have mini readings, 15 minutes, 10 minutes of discovery reading to just understand what the chart means in general. I'm not going to show you the chart. I'm not going to confuse things with the technology of it, but I'll just talk about who you are for 10 minutes. Or you can have a one-on-one with me, which is a full reading. Many of my clients coach with me on a regular basis. So the sun sign is what you're here to learn in this lifetime. Now, some people have asked me, what if my sun sign and my ascendant and my moon are all the same? I've had people with stelliums where almost every single primary part of their chart or their inner planets are the same sign. Does that mean you haven't learned your lesson and you're here doing it over and over and over again? Sometimes, yes, it is, depending on the numbers. So as you can see here, this is the planet Mercury, and the number beside it is 28. That's a very advanced Mercury. That means you've gone through many lifetimes learning what it was like to be, in this case, a Cancer environment. So I would have to look deeper at the chart because sometimes it means that you're advancing. You've got it down pat and you're advancing the level of knowledge that you have been learning in many lifetimes. And often this means that the person is a sage of sorts or a teacher or someone who's here to make a difference and support other humans. So the sun sign in general, again, is the outfit that you're here to learn to be. If it is in an earth sign, then you're here to learn to be more grounded, practical, rational, problem solving. It depends on the house. So for instance, this is in the 11th house, this sun sign, that's the circle with the dot in the middle. And this person is here to learn to be more of a Cancer. And because they got Jupiter right beside the sun, they're very jovial and happy to learn to be more emotional, understand emotions on a human level, to understand that other people have emotions and that emotions are important. It can also mean that they're here to understand their childhood on a deeper level and probably to make more friendship with that childhood experience. Now, the 11th house here is a house of hopes and dreams and goals. This person may have a goal or a dream that they work or they contribute to humanity, because the 11th house is also humanitarian, in a way that is using emotions and feelings and nurturing. And often these make for great nurses and counselors and consultants and therapists. But again, it depends on the rest of the chart. Because as you can see, this one here has a Leo rising. Think of that little curl as the tail of the lion. And this one also has a lot of Virgo, the moon in Virgo, also meaning a problem solving, which makes for great therapists and nurses as well. So the sun sign is important to know because you want to know what you're here to learn. Have you got it figured out? Do you have it down pat? And again, it depends whether you're looking at Western or you're looking at Sidereal or Vedic. In Sidereal Vedic, I'm a Leo sun. In Western, I'm a Virgo sun. When I first found that out, I wasn't quite comfortable with it, but I still have 2 other planets in Virgo. So I'm still got a very strong Virgo energy, as well as Libra and Capricorn. So we got to look at the whole picture around that. The sun sign also represents your father. And may I digress, the moon represents your mother and childhood experiences. The sun sign represents the father. So you want to look at adversities to the sun sign to see what the relationship with is as with the father, the same with the moon, what the relationship is like and what you're here to learn from the mother energy and what you're here to learn from the father energy. Father-mother energy is extremely important. We all possess the father-mother energy, the masculine, feminine, the nurturing, the protective. Whether you are a parent or not, we all possess that energy. And in order for us to be able to father-mother ourselves and protect and nurture ourselves, you want to understand the lessons you are here to learn and what they are through your parents. No matter how difficult and tumultuous, traumatic that is, it's important to understand that. Sometimes when I see in someone's chart, you may be teaching them the lesson. You've come here to be a sage, a teacher, a preacher, to be learning gifts that's going to help and support humanity, possibly in the next incarnation. And so it's careful what you wish for. It's hard lessons, very hard lessons in order to acquire that status. Often the only way that you will completely understand humanity in order to help them is to experience tragic trauma, loss, abandonment, pain yourself. It's not enjoyable, but it's part of adulting as a soul in order to reach that height where you have more freedom, but you're amongst more struggles. So I hope this lesson on the Ascendant and the Sun and the Moon has been enjoyable for you and you've learned a lot. You might want to listen to it again, take notes, find out what your Ascendant is, your Sun, your Moon. Take a look at everybody else in your life, find out what theirs is, and learn about them as well. Namaste.